Hi there, and good afternoon. We are working together to save our families, our communities, and our way of life. Thanks for watching Canceling COVID. I'm Tanya Rivens. I'm thrilled that you've taken the time to join us. We want you to feel free to have an open and real conversation. We call it Real Talk, Real Solutions. And this is a real conversation with us. Now, today's question of the day, we're going to jump right in because we love to hear your feedback. And you've been a little quiet the last couple of shows. But please weigh in on today's question of the day. Tell us if you or someone you love changed their mind about getting the vaccine. I'm talking about the COVID vaccine. Anyone you know, or have you changed your mind about getting the COVID vaccine? We surely love to know. The country is celebrating a huge milestone today, 100 million vaccines since January. That's very impressive. It's also weeks ahead of the White House's goal, which was set, I believe it was for May. But even as vaccinations increase, experts warn the U.S. may be on the verge of a fourth COVID surge. Number four, and I mentioned that on Wednesday, even we see it coming this way. It's like we're not paying attention and doing what we need to do to avoid doing this. I mean, it's like a train wreck ahead, and we're headed straight towards it. Now, the U.S. may be on the verge of this fourth COVID surge, and Dr. Fauci even suggests there won't be herd immunity until our children are vaccinated. Now, that's a mouthful right there. We can't get the adults to get on the same page. A lot of them don't want to get vaccinated, refuse to get vaccinated. And now we're talking about our children getting vaccinated. That's a huge conversation that we will continue to have. Not to mention, some of the current vaccines that are out that have been around for a while, parents won't even get those. And so you're talking about a newly introduced vaccine that you want our children to take. But most importantly, now I want to shift and talk about businesses and how they've been impacted. I've shared with you that I'm a small business owner. I know a lot of small business owners, and I think entrepreneurship is so important, especially in our community. It's one of the ways of, finding and creating your own stream of income and wealth. And I must say that I've got, I love the people that I've been able to network with and associate with, and they are just so sharp and so smart and provide so much information that I'd love to share these guys with you as well. So Natalie Williams, who I've known for quite some time, she's with the Women's Business Institute of Charlotte, and she's going to join us. So, we can't ignore the financial impact that COVID-19 is having in our community, in our neighborhoods and businesses. They have struggled to make payroll. A lot of them have shut down, and they're putting thousands of people out of work. Help is on the way. It's out there, but a lot of times people just don't know how to find that information. And Natalie, I dressed all up for you because it's a business type of conversation. And I know you are the expert. You are the ultimate when it comes to being a businesswoman. And of course, I've given you all these accolades, and you deserve every bit of them. So to everyone, Natalie Williams, the Women's Business Institute of Charlotte, joining me to talk with everybody. So thank you, first of all, for taking the time out of your busy, I know, truly busy day. So thank you.
No, it's my honor and privilege. Thank you so much. I was looking for an opportunity for us to do something together. So when this came up, I jumped on it. And I wanted to make sure I jumped on it because you're talking about something that's really passionate for me and for our community right now. So vitally important, which is the PPP and the EIDL. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we're having this conversation.
And hopefully we can get you on some more platforms because people need to know. They just don't have the education. So in your role, kind of share some of the businesses that have had and continue to impact them during this COVID outbreak.
So a lot of the businesses had some issues with understanding what the rules are or understanding the language by itself. You and I just had a few minutes, we had a conversation just talking about, how information is disseminated, but it's not received evenly across all boards. And so we try to make sure people understand really what the changes are that have applied. So many small businesses don't have Schedule Cs. They haven't filed their taxes. They haven't paid themselves. They don't know how to pay themselves. And so we've got a lot of issues and a lot of things that are still up in the air, even with the, Biden administration trying to make sure that, this new draw too reaches the really small mom and pop shops. It's still becoming really, apparently difficult for small businesses to understand where they fit in at.
So, Natalie, when people, though, that haven't kept their business in order in the past because they really haven't maybe been educated or never felt like they needed to, is it too late to start doing that and still try and apply for these?
No. So let me just say this too. I want to give a couple of dates and times. So for the general purposes, the PPP and the EIDL, because the EIDL is still available, right? A lot of people are confused about what is the EIDL, what is the advance, what is the PPP. Right now, it's still the opportunity to apply for the PPP. That does not expire until March the 31st. Now, I'm going to say that, but there are some provisos because that runs directly through the banking system, not through the SBA. So if people are confused, they're like, well, I contacted the SBA. SBA is not governing the PPP, just the financial institutions, whether it's a CDFI, whether it's a Black-owned establishment or a traditional bank. So with that being said, you need to literally contact either your banking institution or one of the lender match institutions that you can find on the SBA website. Now, another thing about that is someone said, well, I contacted them and they told me they closed applications. And it could be possible. Banks are starting to close their application process. So we want to make sure people understand if you've done, you filed your Schedule C, even if you haven't filed your Schedule C, and you know that you have a payroll process that you can utilize that. Try to get your application in because there is still funding available and there are certain institutions that are still taking applications. M&F Bank is one of them. Self-Help Credit Union is another one. So you can apply. Now, what's going to happen is in many cases, you're going to have to open up a bank account. And that's just one of the criterias. Traditional banking or whatever, they're going to probably want you to open a banking account before they can give you the lending opportunities. But no, it's not too late to apply.
And that's good to know. And opening up a bank account should be at minimal your concern because if you're in business, you need one. And even if you have more than one, that certainly doesn't hurt what
Mhm.
you're doing. But you really struck a nerve. So I really want to jump into this whole PPP loan because the EIDL, everyone heard about that. And if you had a business, you could apply and they would give you the first 1,000, this first. And everybody was getting that $1,000. And then it's like, okay, what next? How do we navigate? Is there any more money? And even with the PPP now, which you hear more about, it is so confusing. So you mentioned Schedule C, and maybe start by talking about the PPP loan. But even if you don't have a Schedule C, like I had to ask my accountant, okay, what are we doing here? What ultimately decides whether you can apply for the PPP loan or not?
So they're going to look, so the bank. So you have to remember that PPP is going through a bank, right? So unfortunately, some people are saying, well, are they going to check my credit? Because it is a financial institution, yes, they may check your credit, right? One thing, so the credit may be a factor. Number two, do you have any product or services at that bank? You know, do you have anything other than a checking account or a savings account? Have you gotten a line of credit before? Do you have a credit card with that bank? They're going to look at all of these things to see whether or not you fit the criteria in order for them to help and service you. So you mentioned something that was real good, Tanya. You'll have a bank account, let's just say with XYZ, and they may say, we're closed. We don't have any more applications. We're not doing it. So now you have to go to another bank and open up another banking account. Okay, so that's going to be the situation. The one thing I did want to talk about with the PPP and the differences between that and the EIDL, you made a really good point. The EIDL is something that's offered specifically through the SBA. And you mentioned that $1,000. That $1,000 was associated with the EIDL. So EIDL has been around for years. It's not something new. It's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That's what organizations, businesses use when there's hurricanes, there's floods, and there's all these other kind of things that are going on in the country. So people are using those types of loan. The thing that I want to make clear to people is this: from a strategic standpoint, if you do not qualify for whatever reason for a PPP, the EIDL does not expire until December 31st of 2021, which means that you can apply for that. This is a loan with terms and conditions that you will probably never see come back the way they look now. And what I mean by that, it's 3.75% interest for businesses and 2.75% for nonprofits. It's already difficult for nonprofits to get extended lending. So this is an opportunity. It's a 30-year loan term, okay? And you can, with no prepayment penalty. You can use this for working capital and normal operating expenses such as healthcare, car benefits, rent, utility, fixed debt payment, whatever. It has a 12-month deferment period, okay? So let's just say, for example, you need to establish a line of credit in your business and you have experienced something in COVID that is proof that you had a decrease in your revenue and you want to apply for the EIDL. My suggestion, because we're so afraid of risk, right? We're so afraid of credit. We don't trust the system, and I get it. My suggestion is this: if you have the capacity to, the EIDL is a great tool to help a small business establish a line of credit, which means it gives you the capacity to move beyond just 6 months, but to a couple of years. It's a 30-year payback. If you decide that you don't want any of this money, you have the ability to pay that money back, every penny of it, without a prepayment penalty, okay? If you decide to keep the funding, you keep it, and of course, you'll make payments on it at a 3.75, but not until 12 months later. The other thing about the EIDL, which is a great advantage, is if you get, say, for example, you go for 50 grand, which you'll have to show some collateral for, but you go for 50 grand and you realize it's not enough. You need a little bit more. You can apply for additional funding. You can apply for additional funding. Okay. So that is what the EIDL. That has nothing to do with forgiveness. Right now, it has nothing to do with advance. It's just the EIDL. And these are the terms that they're offering it right now with the SBA. Now, let's talk a little bit about that $1,000 that Tanya was talking about and what the government is now doing. If you applied the first draw, the first go round last year, and you received the $1,000, there's called a targeted EIDL targeting grant that the government is doing automatically. You don't have to apply for it, but they're doing it automatically. So if you applied for $1,000, what they're doing is they're making small businesses in the underserved areas, underdeveloped areas, they're making them whole. And if you applied for $1,000, you will get a notification from the SBA to make that advance whole up to $10,000. That's right. It's a grant. You don't have to pay it back. They are making the small businesses in those impoverished areas, in those underserved and underrepresented areas whole. You don't call. They're doing it internally. They're looking at the statistics to see where they're located. And if they're located in these particular geographical areas, they are making those businesses whole. So if you got $3,000, then you'll get a $7,000 grant. If you got $1,000, then you'll get a $9,000 grant. So that's on that side with the EI.